Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Maria, and I'm a tech support specialist here at Thor 3D. Today's webinar is going to be all about scanning humans, and we will be looking at several examples: the full human body scan, scanning a separate arm or leg, and the techniques that apply to that, and also scanning the human face with the Colibri Mini scanner. If you're not familiar with our scanners, you're welcome to take a look at our website and see the specifications of each scanner. The regular Colibri is generally intended for larger objects, so humans, cars, furniture, anything like that. And the Colibri Mini has a smaller scope of view, and it is intended for smaller objects where you need a lot of detailization. So human faces, human hands, ears, coins, jewelry, anything like that. If you haven't, if you're not familiar, you're welcome to look at our other videos on our YouTube channel, as well as some Colibri lessons to learn more about the scanners and general scanning techniques. So today I would like to introduce my colleagues, Andre and Yulia, and they will help me to demonstrate how to scan humans. So, Yulia, Andre? All right. So today my colleague Yulia will be scanning Andre on this orange turntable. A turntable is not necessary, but it is definitely a good tool to get a full human body scan from all sides. Alright, so first some general recommendations. When you are scanning, the Colibri and the Colibri Mini are both structured light scanners. So I would highly suggest to either turn off any overhead lights, like these bright office lights here, and try not to scan in direct sunlight as well. So if you have any studio lights in the space where you're scanning, please to make sure to turn those off. The light from the scanner is enough to capture all of the features. So we will be placing Andre on this orange turntable here. Okay. And you can scan a human several ways. They can have their hands to the side, and that will definitely be much simpler. But for our purposes today, we will be putting these metal sticks under the arms to get all of that underarm geometry and to get all of the features of the arms. So in this pose is how we will be scanning Andre. Let me go ahead and also turn on the scanner view for you. So you are not only seeing what how the subject is being scanned with Yulia's hands, but you will also be able to see the actual process in the scanner. Okay. Just a moment. Alright, so right now we are in the preview mode of the Colibri. We will be scanning Andre in geometry mode. So because he has a lot of geometric features, you do not have to use texture mode, because we will be able to create a texture model as we're scanning in geometry mode and then apply the texture on top of that. And of course, scanning a human with markers would be quite silly, so geometry mode is the best. So prior to beginning, you can see there's a drop in the top right-hand corner. So please make sure to set it to dark so that spiral motion. So you want to keep turning the scanner and make sure that you will be getting an even mesh from all sides. Generally, we want to scan the head one time as while Andre is a great subject and he stands very still. Still, people breathe a little bit and move their eyes and blink even slightly, and that can be later seen on your scan results. So try to scan the head and the face one time, and then continue downwards on the body. You can also see scanning the arms can be tricky sometimes, as they are kind of pointed away from the body, so there's a bit less geometry. So when you're scanning the arms, make sure that the torso is also in the same shot, so that there's enough continuous geometry for the scanner to see, and so that tracking will not be lost at any point. We also asked Andre to wear some colorful clothes. He's wearing a blue t-shirt, blue jeans, and blue sneakers. So as long as the person is wearing kind of anything but solid black, then the subject would be very easy to scan. So when you are choosing the subject that you will be scanning, please make sure to prepare them, like we did in our example here, that the person is ready to stand as still as possible and hold that pose for several minutes. So for this case, when you are scanning small kids, it can be difficult to get them to stand perfectly still. So that is definitely a challenge. Also, make sure to tell the person to take off their glasses and any shiny jewelry, and also their watches, as that can also be reflected in the scanning results. So please make sure to take all of those items off. Also, please tell the subject you are scanning not to talk or move their eyes too much. Of course, the person has to breathe, but advise them to take kind of small, shallow breaths throughout this process. And as always, as a reminder, if you have any questions or comments um, regarding human scanning, please make sure to leave those comments in the YouTube comments, and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, and there's our scan completed. Let me go ahead and switch you over to Colibri Nest, and we can take a quick look and see how the scan can be processed. So here you can see this is Colibri Nest. This is the software that comes in a bundle with each Colibri scanner. You can also download this software from our website. Alright, so here is our preliminary point cloud of Andre. You can see that the whole human body was able to be captured quite well in 3,000 frames. So you can definitely take more shots. Like when I scan, I get about 5,000 frames, but you can see there's definitely enough data for us to construct a good model. So there is quite a bit of noise around the head since, as I said before, humans do move their faces slightly, but that can all be fixed when we run the cleaning algorithms. As Yulia was scanning, she was also reaching kind of underneath the arms as well, so you can see kind of underneath this arm quite well. Now this hand is lacking a little bit. Now our algorithm will be able to fill in some of the holes that you are seeing. So I'm going to quickly finalize this mesh just so that everyone can see how easy it is to kind of clean up those things, clean up this point cloud. So before we kind of create any mesh, we can open up the settings in Colibri Nest. We can select any of the presets that we have available, and you are also able to create any custom settings that you want. So the lowest possible resolution for the regular Colibri is 0.7. Now, scanning full human bodies, you do have quite a lot more data and information. So generally, we recommend that you use a kind of lower resolution just so that processing would be a bit faster. Also, Andre didn't have much hair, so that wouldn't be an issue in finalizing the mesh. Now, if a person does have kind of long, wavy hair, some of those points can be kind of cleaned up by our algorithm. So in that case, if you are processing a model with very curly hair, you would turn off this preliminary cleaning feature. And I will show you a model of how we kind of can easily get around that. But for this purpose, I'm just going to kind of select preliminary cleaning. I usually turn off simplification as I only kind of run this step before I texturize my model. When filling human models, I always like to select to fill all holes, just so that we can get kind of as much data filled in as possible. So for our purposes, just to make a quick model to show you how easy this is, I am going to be setting this higher resolution at 3.5 millimeters. And now I'm going to press the play button next to the settings button and run that registration and finalization algorithm. So the registration algorithm lines up all of the frames together, and the finalization stage creates our finalized mesh. At any time in the bottom right hand corner, I can always open up the tab and you can see how much of my laptop's resources are being used by our software. So the speed of processing a model depends on several things. So the size of your project itself, so how many frames you have. So if you have a lot of frames, then processing would be a bit slower. If you set kind of the higher resolution, it would also make the model kind of more dense and take more processing, and also the actual processing power of your computer. So I have quite a lot of RAM. I have 24 gigs on this laptop. On our minimum specifications on our website, we recommend at least 16, but the more powerful your laptop or computer that you are using for post-processing, the better. So I did select quite a kind of low resolution, 3.5 millimeters, but also on the same laptop, I am simultaneously streaming to YouTube, so that is taking up a lot of my kind of computer resources for that process. So while that's going, please, if you want, you're welcome to ask any questions in the YouTube chat, and I will be happy to answer them. right, we have a really good question in the YouTube chat here. So you can scan without a rotating table. The scanner does come with a 5-meter long cord, so you can easily walk around the subject you are scanning. You just have to make sure to kind of untangle the cord as you are going around your subject. I'm not quite sure about the layer of scan data, but generally if you make sure to kind of scan each side once, so kind of go around the head once, kind of around the whole torso once, then you will be able to avoid any kind of ripples or layering on your data. Also, if there was some tracking loss possibly, or the person did move slightly, the registration algorithm helps to kind of clean up those frames as well. But also on the finalized mesh, you can always cut those extra frames manually. Please give me one moment to kind of open up our model. So while a scan is post-processing in the Colibri Nest software, you are unable to use the scanner while it's still connected to the same laptop, so the scanner will be inactive. So while a scan is being post-processed in one laptop or computer, we suggest that you can connect your scanner to a different computer to kind of continue scanning if you want that as a continual process. Or you're welcome to make your multiple scans and then post-process them kind of afterwards, after you are finished your whole scanning session. Okay, so let's take a look at a previous scan I have prepared for you, just to save us a bit of time. Alright, so this scan was also done in about 3,000 frames. This is 3,300 frames. And this is my colleague Yulia. As you can see, she has quite kind of fluffy curly hair. If we are looking at just the point cloud by itself, and if we zoom in on the face, you can see that the hair is showing up quite sparsely. So if you run the algorithm with cleaning, and if you don't fill all of the holes, then it is very likely that you won't be able to see all of the hair. Now, if I switch over to the result that was post-processed, you can see the hair quite clearly and the head looks smooth and all of the features are visible. So that is when we turned off preliminary cleaning and when we filled all of the holes. So that is how we are getting a good model, and we are able to quite easily see the hair on any model. Okay, so this is just the mesh model. As we can see, The hands in this case are kind of, one hand is in her pocket and the other hand is down, and the scanner was quite easily able to kind of capture the features of both the arms, the legs, and also you can see all of the folds of the clothes very, very well. Okay, so next we can also scan separate human limbs. For example, we can scan legs or feet for prosthetics purposes. So in this case, the regular Colibri is a perfect scanner for that task. Again, as long as you position the arm and the leg in a stationary position where the person is not moving their arm and their leg, then you are able to kind of get all of those features quite well. Now, you can also scan it with the Colibri Mini if you do need finer detail, but the Colibri Mini is generally better to get just the features of the hand and just the fingers. Scanning the whole length of the arm would be challenging, as that area is lacking quite a bit of geometry, and especially for the Colibri Mini with a smaller field of view, that would be difficult. But for the regular Colibri, because the field of view is larger, we are able to scan an arm and a leg much more easily. So let me go ahead and switch over so that we can see how we can scan Andre's arm. Okay. And once again, I will be turning on the scanner screen itself so that you would be able to see what the scanner is seeing in real time. Okay, here we go. So as you can see, Andre has positioned his arm kind of with his fingers downwards, and they are fixed on this stool. So the arm's positioned in one place, and Yulia will be able to get it from all angles. And as always, when you are scanning, please always make sure to keep turning the scanner as Yulia is doing so that you are getting an even mesh. Also, you can see in the frame, you're seeing the arm and you're also seeing a part of the torso. So that is kind of additional geometry for the scanner to be able to see the whole arm more effectively. Now, all of that extra data, like the torso, can be easily cut in post-processing in Colibri Nest. So this is just to help you keep track and to get all of the features necessary. Because Colibri has that larger field of view, always try to have as much possible continuous geometry in your shot. And you can see how Yulia is kind of turning into kind of every crevice, so above, underneath, from all of the sides, so that we can get all features of the arm. So again, like scanning the full human body, try to get all of your data into one scan. If you do try to align or merge multiple scans, you could come up to a few issues with misalignment and some ripples that are created because people do move slightly. So try to make sure to get as much information as possible into each scan every time. So I will go ahead and open up a scan of the arm so you can see how that looked after being processed. Okay, so here is the processed mesh of Andre's arm. As you can see, it was placed in the exact same position on the stool. This mesh was finalized with a 1.6 millimeters. So that is definitely kind of enough to get all of the features of the arm. As you can see, the kind of additional geometry of the torso was already cut off after the mesh was processed. So let's get in closer and take a look. You can clearly see kind of each finger. You can see the veins on the arm. You can see the folds of the shirt also. So this is a really great example. Of course, as always, you can process your mesh at a lower resolution, so 0.7, 0.8, but please remember that, again, that will take more time to post-process depending on the capabilities of the laptop you are using. So if general human scans, if you are scanning the full human body, you can make that finalize the scan at about anywhere between 2 to 2.5 millimeters. Kind of separate body parts like arms and legs can be finalized at 1.6 millimeters to 1.5 quite easily. Okay. Okay, let me take a look at your YouTube comments here. Color scanning. Very good question. So, while you are scanning in geometry, you can actually easily select to be able to apply color to the model afterwards. Give me just one moment and I will show you exactly on the scanner screen how we can select that. Moment. So if we are looking at our scanner screen on the touch screen, before we begin any scan, we can go to the preview. So if we go into our preview mode, so this is still the preview, we have not begun any scanning. So prior to scanning, we can change some of the settings. So like I said before, especially for capturing darker hair, here's where we can change the projector. So that's this drop in the right-hand corner here. So I always select it to dark. That way the strength of the projector is higher and we can get kind of any darker hair quite easily. And also, I can either change any of using the settings here, kind of add the 3 circles on the right, or I can select them from this menu on the left. So by default, right now, it is collecting every 20th frame to be a texture frame. So as I am scanning in geometry mode, the scanner is basically taking photos. Every 20th frame is like a photo. That is the texture frame, and all of those frames will be used to kind of apply color to the model. If you just need a mesh model without any colors, you can always set this number to 0. Okay? Usually I just use the default settings to every 20th frame. That is definitely enough information to be able to apply texture to our model afterwards. So while the scanner does have an option for texture tracking, that is not necessary with humans, because with geometry tracking, as you saw, you can select the number of texture frames to then apply color to the model. Let me go ahead and open up a color model with texture, and you can see how that was done. While that's opening, let me kind of answer a connected question. So the color of the texture is dependent on several things. So I always set that projector to dark, so then the projector strength is kind of projecting kind of more light onto your object, and then your texture frames will be brighter. Generally, you can also then, once you have created the finalized mesh model, you will be able to kind of tweak the texture model as well. Okay, so if we take a look at, this was a scan that was done yesterday of Andre in the exact same pose, as you can see. It was finalized likewise using the settings as I said previously, so I made sure to fill all of the holes. I did run our kind of preliminary cleaning as well, as there wasn't kind of much hair that could have disappeared from our scan. You can always cut off the turntable off of the finalized mesh, and you can see that the metal sticks that Andre was holding were also cut off from the result already. So after you create your mesh by running the registration finalization algorithms, you can see there is a button right here. So there's the settings button. Then we have our kind of registration finalization buttons. And then right next to it is this black and white color ball that's called texturing. So in that case, this is what is going to use those texture frames that we selected before, that every 20th frame, to apply color to our model. And let me switch the view. So this is the final model after the texture was applied. You can see very clearly the pattern on the shirt. You can see all of the shadows kind of on the jeans, the turntable. You can see all of the shoelaces as well. You can see the arms. You can see kind of all of the fingers here as well, quite clearly, and also the face. So at this point, you can always adjust the texture as well, so you can kind of play around with the colors, with the contrast yourself. It is possible to kind of set higher texture frames, so you can set the texture frames to be every 5th texture frame or every 10th texture frame, but when you are scanning humans, especially scanning the face, people do slightly move their eyes and blink. So if there are more kind of texture frames being taken across the face, it is possible that the texture on the face could end up not looking as great, because in one frame the eyes were kind of slightly to this side and slightly to that side. So I would suggest just leaving the default number on texture frames, and then you will not have any issues with kind of overlapping kind of texture frames in that case. So I hope that answers your questions regarding kind of colors and applying texture to the model. So also, as you can see, this file was saved as an OBJ. Our previous kind of just STL, just mesh model can be saved as an STL file. So when you save your model as an OBJ, you are saving both as just the mesh and also the texture file, which will create an attached PNG file in the folder you chose to save it. So that PNG file can also be tweaked in programs like Photoshop, and then you can kind of reopen Nest and see how that looks. So that is another possibility to kind of color correct if you do need to do that. All right, so now let's switch over to the Calibri Mini, and we will be scanning the face, and you can see the level of detailization that we can get using the Calibri Mini. Give me just a few moments to kind of set that up and change scanners here. So both the Calibri and the Calibri Mini work in the exact same kind of workflow. You always have the same 3 modes. You have the geometry tracking, you have marker tracking, and you have texture tracking, and post-processing of those scans in Calibri Nest is exactly the same. The only difference is the Calibri Mini uses blue light and not white light like the Calibri. And the field of view for the Calibri Mini is also much smaller. So that is how we can get much more detailed models from the Calibri Mini. So Calibri Mini is great to be able to get kind of all of those facial features like the eyes, the ears, kind of separate fingers, separate toes. You will be able to see all of that very clearly. If you are scanning a whole human face, as you will see shortly, it is best to make sure to scan from ear to ear. So you have kind of starting geometry from one ear, and then kind of also geometry on the face with the nose and eyes and lips, and ending on the other ear, so you're always having continuous geometry. I wouldn't advise to try to go all the way around the head, as by the time you get to the side and the back of the head, there isn't enough continuous geometry for the Calibri Mini to see. So generally, I would just suggest going from ear to ear to get all of those features. Oh, okay, very good question. Yes, we will have, actually, we will have a second session for European time in the later afternoon. So our second session will be 5 p.m. European time. If you weren't able to tune into this session, we will have one of these sessions also uploaded to our YouTube channel, so you can watch this whole webinar at any time that is best for you. So let me go ahead and change over so that we can see the scanning process. Okay. Let me turn on our scanner screen so you can see in real time what the scanner itself is seeing. Okay. And here you can see with the Calibri Mini, the touch screen, all of the features look exactly the same. For scanning, we always try to use Live 3D, as that really helps us in the scanning process. And you can see that Yulia is standing much closer to Andre this time because the mini field of view is much smaller. Okay, and now we can begin scanning. So we start from one ear where we have a lot of kind of geometric features for the scanner to easily see. And again, please make sure to always kind of tilt and turn your scanner so that you will be able to create a good even mesh. Now, as the Mini's field of view is smaller, please just make sure to move kind of slowly and to make sure that your tracking will not be lost. Whenever you're scanning humans with the Calibri or the Calibri Mini, you can always scan the person with their eyes open or with the person's eyes closed. It doesn't matter. If the person's eyes are open, there is no danger. It is just structured light. It's just up to the subject you are scanning to be able to kind of keep their eyes open and kind of motionless for as long as possible. So as you can see throughout the scanning process, you can see all of the features very clearly. So the eyes, the nose, so the ears are kind of very easily picked up by the Colibri Mini. Okay. And after getting all of the facial features from the front, we come around to the other ear, and now we will have our full face. Okay. Let me go ahead and pop open that scan for you so that we can see how the point cloud looks. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this is the scan that Yuli just made. It's about 2,500 frames, so it's definitely enough data to get all of those facial features. So just looking at our preliminary point cloud, you can see we definitely have a lot of information. We can clearly see the ears, we can clearly see kind of the nose, right, underneath the chin as the scanner was pointed kind of underneath as well. So as I said previously, for the regular Colibri, the field of view is larger and the maximum kind of highest resolution we can get is 0.7. With the Colibri Mini, because its field of view is smaller, we can get scans with much higher resolution. So we can get scans about, at the lowest, at about 0.2 millimeters. So again, those presets are in Colibri Nest, but you can always kind of create your own presets and kind of play around with those numbers as you want. So this is a finalized scan that was finalized using a resolution of 0.3. Let's kind of zoom in and take a look. You can see all of the features turned out very clearly and very crisp. You can see all the features of the ears very clearly. You can see the nose and the mouth turned out very, very well. So the Colibri Mini was able to capture those features very precisely. So, you can also see kind of some of the hair on the eyebrows, okay, even some of the wrinkles and texture of the skin. So the Colibri Mini is really great for those purposes if you need that high detailization of objects. And again, just like I did with the previous models, if I go back to the frames of my scan that was done, I can actually open up the frames, and you can see there are some frames with this pink box. So those are the texture frames. So that is the texture camera literally taking photos during the scanning process. So we set the default to every 20th frame to get texture, and you can see every 20th frame has that pink box, and you can look at each individual frame and actually see the texture file. So again, these are the texture frames that you can then kind of create a texture model on top of your mesh model. So if there are any other questions, please leave them in the chat and I will be happy to answer them. As I said before, this webinar will be available as a permanent video on YouTube, so you can always kind of replay it and watch back the whole process. Please feel free to check out any of our other YouTube videos and tutorials on general scanning, as well as kind of specific techniques, anything from marker scanning to merging scans to kind of the difference between like using Colibri and Colibri Mini. Also on our website, you can go to our gallery and you can take a look at some of the many 3D models that were created with the Colibri and the Colibri Mini, including some human models will be in that gallery as well. Alright, so please go ahead and try to use any of the techniques that I discussed today when you are scanning humans and body parts, and hopefully with time and practice you can easily get such results. So if you ever have any questions regarding any of our scanners or any of our software, please feel free to write to our email at support@thor3dscanner.com. Here's the email down below, so please feel free to send any of your questions or queries to that address. So once again, thank you very much for your time and attention, and good luck scanning.